Hey everybody, Alvinator here from Mulligans and Hackers podcast. And today on the pod, we have president and founder of the National Putting Tour, Brock Gillespie. How you doing, pal?
Oh, good, man. Thank you so much for having me on.
I appreciate your time. I always appreciate it when people take some time out of their day to come and chat with us on the pod. So the National Putting Tour. Now this is a U.S. National Putting Tour, correct?
Yes.
So when did this start and where did the idea come from?
Yeah. So the year was 2017. I had seen a commercial on the Golf Channel for this entity called the Major Series of Putting. I don't know if you heard about this. People in Canada maybe didn't know about it, but it was pretty popular in the US. It was very popular in French Canada, which I'm sure you probably know. Up in Quebec, they love mini golf and putting up there. And this thing was called the Major Series of Putting, and it was a huge putting contest. And they threw all these different putting contests in different big cities around the nation, as well as a little bit in Canada. They did Montreal and Toronto, I believe. And this entity called the Major Series of Putting started in 2017. I'd seen the commercial on the Golf Channel. Their website didn't work quite right, so I kind of gave up on it. I'm sitting at a poker table at my local Indian casino, and I make it to the final table of this small little poker tournament, and the guy at the final table had a hat that said MSOP. And I was like, "Oh yeah, I saw that on the Golf Channel." He's like, "Yeah, we're right up the street at Saquon Golf Course." He's like, "We're doing a big tournament tomorrow. Anyone can play. Come on out." And that was the beginning. I went out, I did pretty well. I finished in the top three of putters in San Diego 2 years in a row, and I made it to the MSOP's big final tournament. Now, in 2017, they built a putting stadium behind Planet Hollywood in Las Vegas. And to the viewers that are out there, when you get time, Google search MSOP putting stadium and look at the images, the Google image search, and you can see the images of this putting stadium. And it was the most incredible experience of my life. Before we started recording, you started talking about the butterflies you get when you're in the hunt, right? And that was a drug that I couldn't get enough of. Being near the top of the leaderboard. Once in a while, I'd win a small tournament here and there. And I just fell in love with that adrenaline rush of being in the hunt and with these putting tournaments. What happened was the owner of the major series of putting, guy by the name of Guy La Liberté, he owns Cirque du Soleil. He poured about $3 million into this thing, and unfortunately, they just could not get any traction. Their attendance was going down, and then COVID hit, and I think it was kind of the perfect time for them to jump ship. Rumor has it that the MSOP might come back someday, but what happened was is it left sort of a vacuum where, especially on the west coast of the United States, there were no putting tournaments. I had been doing this little thing with my friends called the San Diego Putting League. It was just a bunch of guys in San Diego getting together. And then when the MSOP went out of business, I was like, man, maybe I rebrand into the National Putting Tour, try to get some of these major series of putting customers from the West Coast to do my tournaments. And yeah, man, the rest is history. It kind of started off small and it started growing and growing and growing. And now I'm doing my 55th tournament. We have a TV show that airs on ESPN2 every year, part of their ESPN 8 the Ocho series that airs in August. And we're doing bigger and badder things. And this year, 2025, is going to be our biggest year yet. We're doing a huge tournament at the American Dream Mall in New York City. It's actually technically in East Rutherford, New Jersey. But that's going to be our ESPN show tournament. And we're building sort of a putting arena where we're going to have an audience, and it's going to be a really big thing, man. And yeah, we're building and building and building, and I'm hoping that someday I can replicate that putting stadium that the major series of putting did. So that's sort of the evolution of how I got into it, and sort of where we're at now, coming into our fifth season.
So what does it take? So you have this idea. So and it's a national tour, so you've done events all over the U.S., correct?
Yes.
So what goes into planning your tour per se, and locking up locations for your events and prepping for a season? Like what went into prepping for the 2024 season? Just give us a little rundown of that.
Yeah, so that's evolved over time. When I first started doing the tournaments, I was only doing tournaments where it was convenient for me. I was doing stuff in San Diego, maybe driving to LA or Phoenix, but not really doing much outside of that realm, even though I was calling it the National Putting Tour. Technically, we were really just doing tournaments in the Southwest, and it was convenient for me. It was a short drive. It was a hobby project, nothing that really made any money. It was just kind of for fun, right? And then more venues started contacting me and I started making more connections. So one of the big connections that we made, I'm sure you've probably heard of Popstroke, right? The Tiger Woods owned facility. Okay. So they tried to do their own tour in 2023. Um, Kind of a similar thing that happened with the major series of putting. It was just really tough for them to profit. They poured some money into it. It didn't really take off. But what happened was I was sort of I did their website. You can check it out at popstroketourseries.com. That's actually what I do for a living. I do website design. Website design company's Cool Cat Interactive, if you want to look that up, a little shout out there. But we made this connection with Popstroke. And Popstroke, the facilities are absolutely phenomenal. I mean, bar, restaurant, two big mini courses. The courses are pristine. The greens roll true. They don't get a lot of like rippling up of the turf and like aesthetic problems that some of these venues have. And we made this connection with Popstroke. Well, then Popstroke was like, well, we're not doing tournaments anymore, but if you want to do some tournaments, you can try it. So then I started like doing like a Popstroke tour series segment of the National Putting Tour, which we did 4 putting tournaments last year at Popstroke. And then because of the ESPN show, I've now had people calling me wanting to do tournaments and they're paying me to come out to their venue to do a tournament at their venue. So it started off just out of convenience. Like if I was taking a trip to Vegas just for fun, I'd go out there and throw a tournament while I was out there and just kind of like where I was going. There definitely still is a little bit of that. I drive across country to visit my son. I'm from San Diego, but now I live in a little town called Etowah, Tennessee. And I'm driving back and forth for that because I just hate to fly. And then I like doing tournaments on my drives back and forth from seeing my son. So a little bit of convenience. Now that we're picking up some steam, we're starting to get some entities call us. And then I've built some relationships with like entities like Popstroke. And just for your viewers, if you're interested in coming out and playing, our first tournament of 2025 is on January 12th and it's in Daytona Beach, Florida, at their Popstroke location there. And it's just incredible, incredible venue. So yeah, it's kind of evolved over time, but that's kind of the gist of how the schedule gets made.
That's crazy. And I mean, again, building any type of national tournament-based league like that, it takes a it takes you being focused and making sure that you're on track with what your ideas are and what your ideology going down the road is.
Yeah.
So now your participants. Let's talk about your participants. So when you have these events and they're at different places, you get guys traveling from different parts of the U.S. to come and participate.
Yeah, so it's a little bit weird. I'm a top competitive putter and I run the tour. So it's a little strange. Sometimes there are some conflict of interest type issues. Luckily, and I hate to like, talk bad about myself or whatever, but I'm not like the best guy. So when I play in the tournaments, yeah, I've won some, but not like a ton. And the ones that have like the best players that come out, yeah, I usually don't win, but I cash quite a bit, which we pay the top 33% of players in my tournament. So with the top guys, there's not really a feeling of like, oh yeah, Brock's the shark in the tournament. He runs the tour, he wins the money. Like it's pretty cool. But there are some tournaments that I do. Like I did a tournament with a company called Big Shots. They're sort of a lower level top golf. And I did a tournament up in St. George, Utah at Big Shots, and they were kind of a little bit apprehensive about me like playing for money. So in those, I play in it, but I play under the category NIM, not in money. So there are some tournaments that I go NIM. I play. My name's on the leaderboard, but I'm not part of the money thing. So there's no conflict of interest. But the only reason I do these tournaments is to play in them. If I could not play in these tournaments, I probably wouldn't do them unless I was paid a certain, a sizable amount of money, which these tournaments don't yield a ton of money. They make a little money, but it's not something that you're gonna get rich off of or anything like that. So it's important for me to play them, have fun with that. And yes, to answer your question, guys do travel. Now, one of my sort of expressions, slogans, or whatever is the number one thing that's stopping competitive putting from taking off, from really taking off, is our travel costs. Okay. When you factor in a $300 to $600 plane flight, you factor in a $200 to $400 hotel room to be somewhere for a few days, all the other travel expenses that are involved with traveling, it doesn't make financial sense for people to travel too far. So I do these tournaments in the major cities, San Diego, Phoenix, Las Vegas. We're going to be doing one this year in Austin, Texas, Florida, Orlando, Florida, Tennessee, Kentucky, Georgia. I've done some stuff in Atlanta, Georgia. When I do these in these certain regions, the tournament mainly consists of people that live in that area that are, probably no more than like a 4 or 5 hour drive from the venue. You might get some diehards drive like 6, 7, 8, 9 hours, but most of the time they're within an hour away and it's a local kind of a thing. But you will get for the big tournaments that I do, like when I do my tour championship and stuff like that, you'll get, 3 to 5 guys that fly in from somewhere, guys that don't like aren't in it maybe for they're not like totally in it financially. They want something fun. They want to maybe they take the wife on a vacation and they kind of do this on the side while the wife is at the spa or something. But yeah, it's a mixed bag, but mostly local players at these tournaments.
So you said there's a payout for these tournaments. What and you pay out the top 33. So what type of payout are they looking at here?
Sure. So when it comes to the different tours that are out there, the payouts for the National Putting Tour maybe are not at the top of the list. Okay. There are other putting tours. There's a putting tour in Arizona, in Scottsdale, Arizona. It's not really a tour. They just call it a tour. It's called the World Putting Tour, and they do that at Putting World in Scottsdale, Arizona. They infuse money into the pot. So just this last year, they did a tournament where first place was 25,000. But they're throwing a sizable amount of money into that pot. Pot Stroke Tour Series was also injecting some money because I'm sort of running these things solo. I usually have an assistant with me at the big events, but because I'm running these things solo and I'm not in a position financially to throw thousands of dollars into a prize pool for putters and just lose money and not care, with the National Putting Tour, whatever comes in goes out. Okay, so the payouts at my tournaments are not super substantial. I have sort of two models of pricing. I have a model that I use for the pop stroke stuff because it's a different situation with the course rental that I have to pay and stuff like that. The last winner of our pop stroke tournament in Myrtle Beach won $1,400 and I think made like an extra couple hundred in best round and stuff like that. So maybe 15, 16, $1,700. I had a tournament one time where someone won about 2,500. A lot of the tournaments that I do, the smaller ones, first place is like 6, 7, $800. So not sizable amount of money in my prize pools, basically because unfortunately, we don't have huge sponsors that just want to, burn money. We don't infuse money into the prize pools, and the interesting thing about that is that's one of the reasons why I'm still around. The World Putting Tour in Scottsdale, they were infusing money, and they must have blown maybe over a couple $100,000 infusing money into all these tournaments, trying to turn it into some worldwide thing, and their attendance just went like this because people get beat. They get sick of throwing $200, $300, $400 down the drain to play a putting tournament if they're getting beat every time, and they're not infusing money anymore. So their prize pools have kind of got more towards what I'm doing. And then Pop Stroke Tour Series went out of business. Uh, uh, Major series of putting that I told you about, they were infusing money. They went out of business. So in order to keep this thing going, we have to spend our money, prudently, and therefore the prize pools aren't that sizable. But you're spending 3, 4, 5 hours at a putting tournament, you're making $1,600. I mean, it's not so bad if you're one of the top guys.
But again, you have.
But yeah,
I mean, you're relatively new in the whole this national putting tournament thing. I think personally, from again building things like that, you have a great starting point here. Not that this is the starting point, but because this is your, I think you said fifth season, right?
Yes,
But
yes.
if you're doing it right and the model is right, where could it be in 5 years? Where could it be in 10 years? If you're continuously growing and there's that interest in the brand and in the putting tournaments themselves, there's nowhere but up for this type of event, in my opinion.
I appreciate you saying that, and that's obviously what we're hoping for. The show that I landed with ESPN, that has been a huge thing because the show aired in August of 2024, which was, a handful, few, 3, 4 months ago. And since the phone has been ringing off the hook, and we're getting all these entities out there that want to do big tournaments in 2025, landed a really, for me and this tour, a very lucrative TV deal with the American Dream Mall, which is this huge, amazing mall just outside of New York City. And so, yeah, we're definitely picking up steam. And then I'm talking. I don't want to name names because I don't. If it doesn't go through, I don't want to feel bad about it or put someone in an uncomfortable situation. But we're talking with a really big entity out of Austin, Texas, and the guy's got some pretty good connections with the CBS Sports Network, and we're talking about maybe doing another TV show on the CBS Sports Network. So things are picking up, and yeah, we hope that in the years to come, we get bigger and bigger and bigger. And the dream that I'm still chasing is to replicate what the MSOP did in 2017 with this putting stadium that they built. It was the most immaculate, most incredible thing that I've seen in this space. And the stadium cost about $1.5 million to put together. So we're a long ways away from that still, but that's the dream that I'm chasing, and we're getting pretty close to that with this American Dream Mall thing. We're doing the tournament, and I know you have one at the I believe it's called the West Edmonton Mall in Edmonton. There's an ice rink
Yep,
inside the mall, right?
yep.
Okay. So at the American Dream Mall, they have an ice rink, and in the summertime, they throw events there, and they did the Gulp Trotters, they did an arena football thing, and we're going to do the putting thing there. So there's going to be bleachers around, and then you got the floor where the putting mats are going to be, and then you have 3 stories of mall around the putting stadium, the putting course, and it creates kind of like a stadium environment almost. So we're getting there. But yeah, the dream is to do some really elaborate thing that would maybe be on the Golf Channel or one of these networks. But we're
But again,
getting we're getting
you've got a
close, man.
couple. You've got a TV deal with ESPN. So there again,
Yeah,
there's your start, and that's where you build from, right? It's like it all doesn't
sure.
come at one time. This is what I've seen in our little brand that we're building here. It doesn't all come at one time, but where we were when we started 5 years ago, as compared to where we are now, we're a galaxy ahead of where we were when we started. And again,
Yeah,
we same thing. I don't really put any money into this. This is just word of mouth and making connections like this, right? And like I said to you earlier, we talk to people all over the world that 5 years ago I never believed we would have talked to, right?
yeah,
So what I see, what
yeah.
you've got there, and what you're building on is it's a great idea, and yeah, I think you know the only trajectory you're going to go with this is up if the model is there. Um, so
I
I,
really
I,
appreciate
I'm,
you
I'm
saying that.
totally enthralled with what you got going on because again, putting is a big part of the game. I've worked a lot
Yeah.
on my putting over this last year and got a lot better at it. But so 2025, do you have a set schedule, or will you be building a set schedule on your national tour, or is it do you get the event and then you start releasing some promo material on it?
Good question. So every tour handles that differently. Um, in a perfect world, we would have a set schedule. The problem is that so much can change on many different levels. Okay. One, I do a lot of my tournaments on natural grass greens. Sometimes you book a tournament in January and then you get out to the green in July and the green's burnt out and it's got all kinds of splotches and you can't do a tournament on it, right? So you got to move venues. Also, what happens is the general managers at these courses sometimes change. So I've had that happen a few times where I book a tournament 6 months out. 3 months go by, the GM gets fired, some new hot shot comes in, and they hate the putting tournament idea and they don't want to do it. So because of and then also my life stuff, I do have a 10-year-old son, and even myself, I've had some periods where, I was having some stomach problems a couple of years ago. I'm doing much better from that now, but I was having some stomach issues. I had to cancel a couple of tournaments because of that. My son sometimes, has health issues. We got to cancel a tournament. There's a lot of different things come up, right? I hate canceling the tournament. Okay. So what I've done is I have kind of a hybrid thing going on in 2025. So what that means is that we do have some tournaments that are set in stone. Okay. January 12th, Daytona Beach, set in stone. June 28th, New York City, American Dream Mall, set in stone. There's a couple others that are looking pretty good. And then there's a bunch of others that I call, are part of my hopeful schedule. Okay. So what I do is if you go to nationalputtingtour.com, there's two tabs. There's one that says future events and one that says upcoming events. They both go to the same place. Right now, I have the first event up there for Daytona Beach. And I also have, excuse me, a PDF that you can download that I call is my hopeful projected schedule for 2025. I decided to bring people into my tournament planning process. When you look at this upcoming schedule, I think there's like 15 or 16 tournaments over the course of the year on there. Some will have an exact date. Those are fairly locked in. Some will just have a month. We obviously haven't locked in a date yet. Some I may have a month listed, but I really don't have anything locked in at all. But there's been a conversation that's happened and it sounds pretty good. It sounds like we're going to do something. So I call it sort of like my potential schedule, my projected schedule. You can see that at nationalputtingtour.com under the upcoming events tab. And it gives people an idea of like where I'm aiming for this and the different areas that I'm trying to hit. But because so many things can change, not we only set things in stone about 2, 3 months out. Okay, so you can figure that anything that's listed there in a few months, 3, 4 months is going to happen. But if there's a listing there that's like 5, 6, 7 months out, I tell people don't buy the plane tickets, don't purchase the hotel rooms. This isn't locked in yet. It's going to be a while, so just take your time. So that's sort of how I handle that. And I know that there are some players that don't like that. Like they want to like plan their whole life out for the year and book all their plane flights 9 months early. And so I get some pushback on that, but there's just nothing I can do. That's just how I do it. And I think for the most part it works out good.
Yeah. Um, where that's one of the things with us. We joined this Alberta Golf Tour last year. We played a few events on it last year. Schedule releases, and we've had the president of that tour on a couple of times now. Probably going to be a regular visitor to our pod because we do some recaps of what we're doing on that tour. But schedule release is something we look forward to because that's how we plan our travel in the summer. This summer we're hoping to get way more events this summer than we did last summer, and just knowing when it comes out for us again, travel convenience, knowing when we're going to travel and when it is kind of a bonus. But I do understand the fluidity you need in a little bit of flexibility with what you have, because our little tour is provincial here in Canada. Yours is national, where you're going from pretty much coast to coast. Lots of things can change, and life happens too sometimes, like you alluded to. Just shit can go sideways. I get it. But again, dude, what you have going is pretty cool. TV deal with ESPN is nothing to sneeze at. I wish you all the best in 2025, and stay in touch. Again, if you need to do any notifications or anything, reach out to us. We'll do another pod. When something big comes up, just let us know, man. And you can go through the pod. You go through the pod circuit. It's a really good way of connecting with a bunch of different people in different areas of the country as well, right?
Sure. Well, that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to spread the word. You'd mentioned something about, you'd been doing your thing for 5 years, and from where you started to where you are now is like a galaxy away. And I never really thought about that, but man, I started doing the San Diego Putting League tournaments about 7, 8 years ago. And we did one at like a little scramble tournament that we were throwing. I think we had like 15 guys, and the tournament was it was like one 7-hole round, and it wasn't even like really much of a tournament. There wasn't like any like signage or anything on the course or anything like that, or leaderboards or anything like that. Like it was basically just like me with a clipboard and a lawn chair and like a little course setup compared, to now I'm doing a TV show on ESPN too. So yeah, it's pretty wild where the journey that I've taken with this, and we're definitely picking up some steam. I'm hoping to get down to the PGA show again here in late January. I went last year and did some promotions, and I'd like to get back down there and promote a little bit. And that is another place where, you can really spread the word to a lot of like people in the golf industry. Sometimes people go down there and they think they're going to sell a bunch of product. And for a lot of these like little golf invention people, like, that usually doesn't happen. But for what I'm doing, when I'm not like when I go to went to the PGA show last year, like I'm not trying to sell anything. Like I'm not trying to like get someone's money right there. I'm just saying like, hey, give it a chance. Watch the show. What I do a bunch of videos on YouTube. So if you YouTube search National Putting Tour, you'll see I do a recap video for every tournament that I do. Now, in all fairness, some of the recap videos that I do are very short and I don't put a whole lot of effort into them. But some of them I sort of call like a TV show and there's a little bit more put into them. And then, of course, the one that I do for ESPN, I put everything I got into it, which that's a really well done professional show. The stuff that I do on YouTube, it's a little bit low level, but it's fun and people, like to watch the videos and they're interested in that. And so yeah, I'm just doing everything I can to promote this thing. And yeah, man, I really appreciate you having me on. And next time that I get something exciting or whatever, I'd love to come back on again and talk to all your people. I know you told me that you have a surging group in Germany that that's watching your podcast, listening to your podcast, and that's sort of the next frontier for us. We do have, I don't know if have you ever heard of the Swedish putting team?
No.
Yeah. So the Swedish putting team is they're a very popular entity. Uh, they're obviously out of Sweden, and competitive putting is super huge in Europe. It's actually bigger over there than it is over here. And so the next frontier for me is to definitely, try to get some notoriety in Europe and maybe even possibly do a tournament in Europe someday. Of course, I'm focused on the States right now. We have a lot more to grow here stateside, but
It
yeah,
would be it would be interesting if
yeah.
you got some of them to come over here and participate in one of your tournaments.
Well, we actually do. So the Swedish putting team, they've come to a number of my tournaments. And, there's a guy by the name of Hans Olofsson, and Hans Olofsson is considered one of the greatest competitive putters of all time. And he is a real fan of the National Putting Tour. And Hans will bring over two, three, four of these Swedish guys with him to some of my tournaments. He just came to my tournament that I did in Myrtle Beach. And so, yeah, some of these guys have actually already come over for tournaments, but we'd love to see more come over. And then I'd love to, try to, you know, uh, get more, notoriety in some of these areas. And so, yeah, being on a podcast like yours definitely helps spread the word across the pond, as they say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, Brock, buddy, I appreciate you giving me a little bit of time today to talk about this. I'm totally intrigued with
Sure.
what you're doing. I will
Yeah.
definitely be paying attention now, and yeah, let's hook up again down the road and talk about it later.
To all the people that are out there listening to this, we'd love for you to come out to a tournament. Check out nationalputtingtour.com. Look at the upcoming event schedule. Another thing that's really important to understand about the National Putting Tour is that we are not a tour catered towards only professional putters. Okay. At every tournament, I have an amateur and a professional division. And then a lot of my tournaments, I do a beginner division. So then the beginner and the amateur division, they're almost always less money. And so if you wanted to come out, like a lot of my tournaments, it's just $20 to enter, and you enter to win a prize, and it's affordable. And so we entice, beginners, seniors, kids, come bring the family. We'll get you in the tournament. Do we also have a group of top level pro putters that come out, some of the best in the world? Yeah, we do. But we also have a lot of fun amateurs that come out, people that just want to do it just for fun, and just have a little competition against maybe people in their skill level. And we don't really have a sandbagging problem. I know a lot of the mini tours and well, not so much mini tours, but these amateur golf tours that exist out there, they have a real problem with the sandbaggers. The guy says he's an 8 handicap and he goes out and shoots even par, right? We have in my tour, like we don't really have a problem with that because we separate it by money. And so in order to win money, significant money, you got to play in the higher division. If you want to sandbag down in the amateur division, sure, you can do that, but you're not going to win any money or very little money. So yeah, there's something in it for everyone. Come on out. We'd love to have you. And then if you wanted to contact me, you can go to nationalputtingtour.com and there's a contact page there. My phone number and email are all over that. And if you're looking to throw a tournament, you're in the United States and you want to throw a tournament, we could definitely try to figure something out and put your venue on the National Putting Tour. So yeah,
Awesome, pal. Great day. So we'll kind of, hook up again down the road and then see where you are.
Okay. Sounds good, man. Thanks, everybody.
Take care, Brock.